Okay. So the first thing, of course, as the first level of defense against ransomware holds our data to ransom. So the first and foremost thing that we need to have is data backup procedures for our servers and desktops. There are many organizations where the individual nodes or the laptops hold a lot of sensitive data. So it is very important for us to have regular backups of the data, whether it is on servers or desktops. The more important thing is the ransomwares. Most of the modern ransomwares, including WannaCry, have the ability to encrypt data that is on your external drives as well as on your file servers. So it is important that while we take a backup on our connected systems and on our online file servers, it is also important to have an offline copy of the data so that all is not lost if all the connected systems are infected. The second aspect is having a good method for security patch updation. So while it is the best practice to ensure that all the security patches are updated at all times, there are several practical constraints which come in the way of achieving this. Every organization has a certain amount of bandwidth when it comes to applying patches. There is also a certain amount of caution that we have to apply when we roll out the patches, because a new patch could affect the functioning of an existing application. So all combined, a couple of things that we need to keep in mind regarding security patches. Instead of trying to apply all patches, prioritize the patches, apply the more critical ones first. One of the considerations for determining whether a patch is critical is, of course, if a publicly known exploit is available for that. So in that sense, the patch, the MS-01710, the absence of which led to the outbreak of WannaCry, was critical in all aspects, because Microsoft had flagged it as critical, and also there was a publicly known exploit. So prioritize the application of patches by looking at threat intelligence. The third point is regarding disabling of non-essential ports and services. As my colleague Rajiv pointed out, the WannaCry ransomware is propagating on the SMB port or the file share port, which is port 137, 139, and 445, both on the internal network and on the internet. There is very limited cases wherein an organization would keep these Windows file share ports open across the internet. But if by any chance that is open, that is something that is highly vulnerable. On the internal network, there could be applications or services which need these file sharing ports. But again, it is important to ensure that all the ports and services are opened and enabled after proper risk assessment. Application whitelisting. This is definitely one of the controls that have that could help us in the event of a ransomware outbreak. This is especially true for systems like ATM machines, which are purpose built, which are single purpose machines, or a POS machine, where it is very easy for us to identify the applications which can be whitelisted. So application whitelisting can definitely help us in preventing a ransomware scenario. So all those machines which are purpose built and all those machines which are possibly on out of support systems, and all those machines where rolling out a patch is probably a challenge because of low bandwidth and other reasons. Application whitelisting could be one of the methods that could help us prevent the ransomware scenario. Monitoring for threats, one of the most important things that we need to do. Even after we have good preventive controls, it is important for us to have capabilities to identify if somebody is trying to attack us, if any of those threats are really becoming successful, and if we are getting infected. There are several tools that would help us to have positive detection for ransomware kind of threats, the IDS solutions, the IPS, and of course the traditional antivirus. We also have the advanced endpoint threat detection and response systems, which are on the endpoints and can go beyond the signature-based system like antivirus and look at suspicious behavior. We also have the anti-APT systems, the systems like the FireEye and the WebSense, who primarily focus on zero-day malwares, where we look at malicious behavior, and can complement the signature-based systems. For proper detection of threats, especially in a scenario like WannaCry, where we have a worm-like behavior, where the malware is spreading rampantly on the internal and internet network, it is important to have visibility on the internal network traffic. We could have visibility by segregating our network internally and using firewalls and using the firewall logs for that monitoring. If we cannot have firewall segregation at all the points, we could use the NetFlow logs to understand what kind of traffic is propagating, so that any kind of lateral movement and high-speed propagation can be detected before the malware achieves its objective, in this case of encrypting and asking for a ransom. Monitoring for vulnerabilities. Yes, many of us do vulnerability scanning periodically to identify specific, if we are vulnerable or not. In this context, what we wanted to share is that we need to have a capability to scan for specific vulnerabilities. For example, when a ransomware or a malware outbreak happens, and we know that it is targeting a vulnerability X, do we have the capability to scan for only that vulnerability X across my 5,000 endpoints very quickly? That is a capability that we need to have, as part of our preparation, so that the moment high-impact malware is released, we know what is our exposure. From a vulnerability standpoint, we also need to have ability to look for indicators of compromise. As part of preparedness, we need to have scanners which will help us to look out for example, specific file names or specific processes or specific registry entries that are existing on our endpoints. So we need to have capabilities for scanning for specific vulnerabilities and scanning for specific set of IOCs. We also need to have threat intelligence feeds, advisories, and updates. Threat intelligence is very key, especially for new threats. The moment a new malware or a ransomware is released in some part of the world, it is important for us to know what is the behavior, how it is propagating, what is it exploiting, what are the indicators, what are the URLs it accesses. So it is important that the organization subscribes to threat intelligence feeds and advisories, so the organization gets updates really on a timely basis about the new threats and how it can be detected and prevented. From a ransomware point of view, it is also important to have quick counter response capabilities. Because as my colleague Raji mentioned, the WannaCry also works in two stages. First, it encrypts and then it propagates. So if you have one of your machines in your finance department infected, how quickly can you kill that machine or take that machine out of the network? Do we really have to send somebody to shut down the PC or disconnect the network, or can we digitally isolate it? So it is very important for us to have quick response measures, including host isolation as well as network isolation. So that is where an internal firewall segmentation as well as tools like network admission control will help us. So, so these are the things that we need to have as part of preparation. And now when the malware notification comes out, so as it happened in the case of WannaCry when it was released on May 12th, these are the questions that that we need to quickly find answers to. Am I vulnerable? Is the threat targeting my organization? Am I already infected? Are my users aware of this? And if I get infected, how do I respond? So if you look at WannaCry, and if you have not been infected yet, these are the things that you can quickly check upon to ensure that you are safe. The first one, of course, as we said, confirm the availability of your data backups. If you do not have a backup of your critical desktops or laptops, this is the right time to take it before an infection happens. So the first thing is to ensure that your backup plan is being executed properly, all your critical data is backed up, and as I said earlier, you keep an offline copy of the backup. Second, from a threat detection point of view, the list of URLs, the list of domains associated with WannaCry has been published by Validian and several other organizations and government agencies. It is important to apply those indicators and look out for if there is any infection in your network. So you can apply those list to your proxy traffic, to your firewall traffic, to your IDS, IPS traffic, and see if there is any traffic that is going towards any of these IPs, which would mean that one of your systems are possibly infected. Keep your IDS signatures updated to see both aspects, whether any of the external or internal users are trying to use the exploit, or if any of the infected systems are trying to do a lateral movement and propagation. The file hashes associated with the ransomware is already published. It is important for you to use the file hashes, especially if you have an antivirus tool which is capable of doing an application level protection. Please provide these file hashes to the tool so that in case any system gets infected and is able to bypass all your network level controls, still when it tries to execute, it is blocked by the antivirus tool. That is on the threat detection. On the vulnerability detection side, look out for the presence of this specific vulnerability, especially the CVEs which are associated with MS017010 patch. And of course, if you find that any of the systems are unbalanced, it is important to apply the patch. Revisit the open ports on your firewall, both at the internal and the external firewall. As I mentioned, most of the propagation is happening through the SMB ports, 135, 137, and 445. There is also internet information that it also jumps across RDP ports. So port 3389 if you have, and if you have RDP open across your networks, it is important to either block them or secure them to ensure that only authorized people are using those ports. Looking out for IOCs, as I said, the artifacts, the file names, the processes that are related to WannaCry are publicly available on the internet. If you have a tool which can look out for these for IOCs on all the hosts, it's important to scan all the hosts and find irrespective of whether the vulnerability exists or not. To be on the safer side, it is important to do an IOC scanning and ensure that you have none of your systems are infected. Reach out to your users to tell them how WannaCry behaves, how to keep themselves safe. Advise them to take a backup, an offline backup preferably of their systems, and also advise them of the immediate first response measures, the most important being to disconnect themselves from the network, because that would avoid the propagation. Specifically related to wannabe, and we have also seen it in the cases of some other ransomwares, some of the security communities or open source release some vaccines. So vaccines are not really a replacement for the patches, but sometimes the vaccines do small tricks like misleading the malware. So for example, they would put some dummy files with the same extension as a WannaCry encrypted file. So WannaCry believes that it has already encrypted the system and would not do any further encryption, whereas what you have put is just a dummy extension. So if there are any vaccines available, and once you have tested that, that is also a workaround that could be used for temporary relief. And as Rajiv mentioned, in the case of WannaCry, we have the kill switch, which is the URL which the malware author had coded. The objective of the malware author seems to have been to bypass sandboxing tools which try to mimic that the domains are available and try to study the malware behavior. In any case, it has come as a blessing in disguise for the users and security community. So the specific URLs which are related to the kill switch DNS, so that the users can access, and that serves as a relief for not encrypting the files. So these are the things that you could do if you have not done any of these already, to ensure that you can detect early and take remedial measures. So if you have already got any systems hit by WannaCry, make sure that you quickly isolate the system as well as the subnet that is associated with the system. Definitely, it's a good idea to extract the malware sample and analyze the malware to make sure that you are it is WannaCry or if it is any other, and you also understand if it is any malware that is targeting your organization, and not get lost in the noise of WannaCry. Rebuild your system securely. In many cases, it is advisable that you do not try to do a selective cleaning of certain files and processes and assume that the system is clean. It is always good if you can afford to have that downtime to completely take a data backup and then reformat the system and rebuild it, and then just to store the data. And it is good to keep it in a separate network and observe it for a few days before reconnecting it back to your main network. So that is on WannaCry. So in this past year, we have had several instances of ransomwares which have been propagating across multiple organizations, whether it is CryptoLocker or SAMSA, and WannaCry is the latest. So just to summarize the things that we discussed earlier with regards to preparation and response, let us take a quick look at some of the things that we can do for making our organization resilient to future ransomware incidents. First, yes, have your data backups, which is the best antidote to a ransomware attack. Keep an offline copy of the backup. Have a capability to monitor and block suspicious activities at the network and endpoint. That is very important. So make sure that you have your proxies in block, your firewalls with block. Also make sure that you have mechanisms in addition to your traditional antivirus like endpoint threat detection system, where you can monitor suspicious behavior and also take remedial action. Some of these malwares we cannot detect using signatures, so it is just as it is important to have signature-based detection, also have higher visibility on network and host, so that we can also do an anomaly-based detection, so that anything that is an outlier which doesn't normally happen in your organization system can be flagged off to your team to take a quick remediation. Definitely build the capability to check for specific vulnerabilities and specific IOCs. It is very important to have that capability, so that when a new ransomware or malware is released, you can identify what is your exposure and take specific remedial action depending on your status at that point in time. Again, a patch. It is best to put all patches, but if you have limited bandwidth, apply the patches which are being exploited first. That's an important thumb rule to follow. Have a capability for for quick response. So as we said, the amount of damage is directly proportional to the time you take to respond to the initial infection. So whether it is having solutions like network admission control or high level of firewall segmentation of internal network, have mechanisms to quickly respond to an incident. Consider application whitelisting, if not for all your business user systems, at least for your purpose-built single-purpose machines, so that you do not have to keep patching them and keep taking action when a new malware or a new exploit is released, because you are reasonably confident that the system will only run those business-related applications and nothing else. Yeah, so that is what we wanted to share with you. So we are open to questions. Please put in your questions on the chat window. We can take it up and discuss. Where to see that? How do you see? It's here. Show me. Yeah, hello. Yeah, go ahead there. Yeah. Yeah, hello. So yeah, we can see the questions. So is is there a toll-free number to dial from India? So if you're looking for help on remediating or assistance on this, you can contact us. Our contact numbers are present on our website, www.validian.net. So you can contact us there. Is this applicable in mobile devices also? So as of now, we have not seen this on mobile devices. It is particularly targeting the Windows operating systems. So it is this particular vulnerability, SMB vulnerability, is on Windows operating system, and it is only affecting the systems installed with Windows OS. Does this ransomware encrypt a disk which is already encrypted? No, this ransomware is targeting specific file extensions. There are about 60 to 70 well-known file extensions that it is targeting. So it is not encrypt. If your question is whether it will encrypt something like a TrueCrypt drive, specifically, yeah, that is something I honestly don't know. It is something that I have to check. So webinar, yeah, we have recorded this webinar and we would be posting this online. What do you mean by application whitelisting? So there are several tools, commercial tools available, which can be installed on an endpoint, and you can define which are the applications which will run on it. For example, if you have an ATM machine and you have the ATM application, you can mention that no other only application which will run on the ATM machine is this ATM app. So even if somebody puts a Microsoft Word, it won't. You cannot execute Word.exe there because it is not in the whitelist. So you can have an application whitelisting software to ensure that even if an ATM running Windows the ransomware is able to exploit and put the ransomware, it will not be able to execute the ransomware file. Is exactly the reverse of our normal antivirus, which has a blacklist and looks for bad files. Application whitelist looks for good files and doesn't allow anything outside of that to execute. So how does WannaCry detect if it is working in a sandbox environment where the reachability of the URL? So so one of the things which sandboxes do is to simulate a real world environment. So for example, if you detonate a malware within a sandbox, and if it's trying to reach certain command and control center IPs, the sandbox would simulate and give a response to it as though it has reached that website, so that the malware thinks that it is in a real environment and starts exhibiting its behavior. So right now, what the malware author for WannaCry also has tried to do is that he just put a random domain, assuming a domain which does not exist, and he just tries to check whether that he's able to access that domain. So the only place where he would be able to access that domain would be in a sandbox. So his logic, as we understand it now, was that if that domain, which it never exists, is being accessed, that means I am in a sandbox, so I would not exhibit any of my behavior. So the other question is, how does WannaCry propagate externally? So yeah, it as I said, it uses SMB protocol to propagate internally as well as externally. So as you have mentioned, it is highly unlikely that any of the organizations would have kept their SMB ports open on the internet. But in case you are open, then you become vulnerable, and then technically it can spread across the internet. Also, it is said that it can spread through RDP as well, and RDP the RDP port is generally used for across organizations for connectivity. So SMB and RDP are the things that we need to be wary about. So Validian, how can Validian help the customers? So Validian releases threat advisories as soon as we get information about new ransomwares, so which we have done in the case of WannaCry also. We provide the threat indicators, including the list of URLs, domains, and file hashes, which you can apply to your proxy servers, DNS, and firewalls, and also at your endpoint antivirus to detect and block the propagation. We also give our advisories regarding what other steps the organization can take regarding firewall ports and other steps specific to the ransomware. Is there any quick steps to find out whether my system is compromised with WannaCry ransomware? One, of course, is to look for the specific IOCs, and in most cases, you could also look at the file extension. You could do a quick check of the file extensions. The file extensions associated with the WannaCry encrypted files are WannaCry and .wcry, etc., which is also publicly known. And in many cases, yeah, when you click on that, the ransom note would pop up. So normally at the end of the encryption, a ransom note pops up. So they don't really remain hidden, because that's one of the objectives is to tell you very soon that you need to pay me the ransom. Can we block particular ransomware related attachments before opening email and make sure it is not accessible? So as we said, most of the portions of the ransomware are downloaded from their command and control server. So what you would mostly receive would be an email which is probably having a link to the site from where the from where it gets downloaded. Is this a zero-day vulnerability? Yeah, it is not. The patch was available about 2 months before the exploit was launched. Of course, there are even though I don't have a dollar figure, it is estimated that about more than 200,000 systems across 150 countries have been impacted till now. Okay, so what is the solution to detect, differentiate, and block ransomware attachments from the bulk emails? We've had Iron Port. We weren't able to survive an earlier attack. So as I said, normally an earlier attack it is referred for the crypto locker. So different ransomwares have different methods of propagation. In the case of earlier ransomwares, they used to send what they call as a dropper as an email attachment. But most likely the impact of those are very less, because droppers are easily identified. Though there is a small time lag, most of the leading vendors, including the network vendors like the proxies and the anti-spam gateway antiviruses, and everybody detect it fast. And then also the endpoints detect fast. So it's very unlikely that the ransomwares in future at least would be propagated as fully file attachments, because it is because from a malware author point of view, it is the success rate would be very less. So going forward, what we need to be careful about is that yes, in many cases, in the case of WannaCry, it was a clear case of a known vulnerability and a well-known exploit. In some cases, it may not be that straightforward. They could use other methods like compromising an Active Directory credentials and gaining unauthorized access and then spreading the malware. So just as we are focused on updating signatures on our systems, we should also have tools which increase the visibility of behavior at both the network level and the endpoint. So we need to really complement our signature-based systems with more visibility of what is happening, so that you know that this is not normal. This peer-to-peer traffic is not normal. This segment A to segment B is not normal. So you can take a look at what is going on before a large-scale malware infection happens in your network. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today for the webinar. We would be we are online soon, and if you have any further queries or need help, you can always contact us through our websites, where our email IDs and numbers are available. Thank you very much.